Alright, I thought I would preface this by saying I've never been in the military, I've never been in a war zone, or anything like that. But I'm going to do a bit of a bragging video about how I'm a proper veteran of the culture war. In a very full sense of the word veteran, actually. But first, I'm going to start with what gave me the thoughts about it and led to them, and you'll see how it works from there. Anyone interested in what we're facing in the urban centers should watch Death Wish series, Charles Bronson, and Harry Brown, Michael Caine. Harry Brown is Michael Caine, the actor. Death Wish series is Charles Bronson, the actor, formerly a World War II pilot who got awarded the Purple Heart and bombed over Japan. Rambo 1 and 5. Dirty Harry is tangential to the genre because he's technically a police officer, not a vigilante. Probably Hobo with a Shotgun as well. These are the kinds of the things that everyone should watch as a man or a boy or something like that. A bunch of John Wayne classics. Commando, Terminator 1 and 2, Aliens, Shane, Highlander, the Clint Eastwood Dollars trilogy, at least maybe the Unforgiven Clint Eastwood movie and Gran Torino as well. Men respect strength. Men and boys respect strength. So do women. Everyone respects strength on some level. The boys will gravitate to it as best as they can, embodying it, and women will flock to men who have it. So you can solve a lot of the problems of feminism and stuff by just being strong as hell. Some are failures, admittedly, when they try to copy their heroes, but establishing a hard as fuck man who is not a punk and that they are not punks, specifically not punks, is vital to their well-being. And by the way, the movies I've given will give you an array of the right approach. Aliens is more feminine, tough mom, daughter figure, but the other ones are very like, this is what a strong man is like, and a hard man who can take down many people at once. The typical person very easily. Bringing up the most hardcore veterans of war, being congenial and reasonably polite and well put together men possible, the most put together possible of men who are pillars of their local community even in peacetime, is the supreme way to deal with urban youths, aside from corporal punishment for antisocial behavior. So, like physical punishment for very awful behavior. I'm not talking wolf whistling or something like that. I'm talking about intimidating the elderly and children and women and stuff like that. And the vigilante aspect doesn't have to be like literally doing exactly what they're doing in those movies, by the way. It could be more like, if you see someone doing it in front of you, then you step in as a man. But the thing is, you're ready to go the distance as far as it's needed reasonably, realistically, not according to women or soy boys, but realistically according to a real man, to the degree that you need to protect the innocent and the vulnerable and so on. And it's not a matter of the government does it, it's a matter of the person right then and there does it. It's a hero quality, not a citizen quality. But if your citizens are heroes, as a general rule, then society just gets better. So it's a solution to problems that will cause a spike in violence of a sort, a certain kind of violence, a retribution against the wicked, where they're doing bad behavior and then you're doing awful things to them for their terrible behavior. and the violence will go up temporarily. But once the order is established that that's what happens to them when they do awful things to the general public, because you're around and you'll do awful things to them for doing awful things to everyone else, the violence will just drop. Because you're in control of yourself and they're not, and you're putting them in their place. The very logic of leveling things out permeates our culture today. That's why our quote unquote heroes have to be quote unquote attainable and quote unquote flawed in very feminine ways. Return to the hardest motherfuckers ever with unbreakable morality who just kill the bad guys. What's called unattainable heights of masculinity isn't unattainable to real men. And even a failure to fully copy a well-rounded set of mythic heroes played by people who are actually a little like them in their real-life glory will inspire a generation. A generation of men truly willing to fail into death and suffering will achieve glories and heights unimaginable to women and give texture or like parameters under which to operate or lip guardrails so they don't go overboard to the imaginations of the children who copy them. We don't need fake CGI heroes. We need real heroes who do hardcore shit in actuality and are very good character. And they exist. That's why we hold them up, because they're like the most competent killers and they're the most moral individuals who like will like do small tasks for the local community that are unthanked. They're not thanked for even, let's say, for the sake of just being a decent individual. Is that combination, that locus, that nexus of both qualities of character and courage and martial ability, that and patience that drives the real men, the heights of glory. Essentially, the all-round perfect man. Now we get into the personal sort of testimony to what I was saying at the beginning. This is where the veteran part kind of comes into play, just and so on. So even in the most mind-breaking horrors of my life, when I was exposed to the terrors of the infinite and like the Lovecraftian notions and all that sort of wild thinking it was real kind of thing, so from a psychotic break and like some schizo and like some other stuff. I was driven by the masculine ethos of the heroes I grew up watching. One might see it as weak, having put myself through so many personal ending attempts, but the motivation for every single one of them basically was utterly sacrificial. And I survived it all 46 times. Knives, bullets, poison, car, stuff like that. So that now, despite being a little traumatized from the horrors of the infinite, some punk with a knife is like Lamau even. You know, I've been through worse. I can pull some of the most mind-bending intimidation myself, or be so subtle in my humility they think it's sneaky, and then lead to an ass whooping regardless. I can go either way. God might terrorize me later for saying this, but I truly am a veteran of the culture wars in the fullest sense of veteran virtually. I've been in plenty of fights. I've been wounded severely. I've got trauma from being so terrified of God that and my own sins that I thought he was out to get me, or that he'd smite me if I ever got happier than the baseline again of like misery, and so on. And it still affects me to this day a little bit, but like, I've got like a set of criteria for when that fear will not be so important anymore, that I'm just waiting on, and apparently the promise is that'll happen. Conflict, courage, sacrifice, duty. I might have some status with some people who are culture warriors with a bit of a following, maybe. I'm not sure, but regardless, the next step is kind of related to it in a way, which is I've got comrades in arms in the fight against tyranny and decay, so the fellow veterans and so on. In the culture war. But as you can tell, the absolute oh my god, I'm going to die no matter what kind of feeling, and the terror of God, and like the physical woundings constantly, and the constantly facing my death thing, it like all combines. You might think it's actually like the injury itself is the problem, but no, it's more like the uncertainty of like if God's gonna smite me if I ever become happy again, kind of is like the thing that gets me the most. It's the unseen wounds, so to speak, not the physical wounds. Um, I've also been around like 6 to 7 corpses in the last 5 years, and one of them I smelled that was a week old for a while, like it was rotten for a week, and no one noticed until it started to smell too much, and then they're like looking for it, and then they finally found it. So yeah, I've got practically a veteran's experience or a simulacrum of the various aspects, including getting into fights and poor living conditions, like living outdoors and stuff, sleeping outside in the winter a little bit. Um, and I've been shaped by a facsimile of warfare, literally. Like it's not literal warfare, but it is literally like a lot of the various aspects of warfare independently given to me through my personal life experience as a civilian. At this point, I'm a little touched in the head by the Fae, or the fairies. Or the Fae is the right way to put it, typically. But not completely broken. A little broken. After what I've been through, it's a goddamn miracle. But I was raised to be a man. A hard man. That's why I soldiered through. The doldrums, or the sort of going nowhere the the going nowhere in life, sort of calm after the storm, without glory or any particular recognition, is a test as well, I suppose. But my children, when I have them, I'm sure, will be fathered very well. So this isn't like, just to say like this isn't like me advertising my life as the ultimate success on the outwardly. The bragging is in the fact that I'm not completely broken after 46 near deaths. And I believe, if I'm correct in my guesswork, that this was ordained by God for my benefit and future glory in Him. So that I can be a peak role model, in essence. So it's not just I was a sinner and then I was saved. It's also like I was a boy with aspirations to be very manly, and through my training over the years, survived what should break almost anybody else. And essentially what's going to happen, I suspect, this is a prediction, I'm not sure, I might be very wrong about this, but my prediction is that when the time is right, I will become an example role model, a paragon of what it means to grow up and develop the right way, or maybe not exactly the right way in doing it, but a paragon of learning the lessons of life well so that I can help other people grow the right way specifically. So like there's a lot of bad behavior. I was kind of like Gollum in a way in the past, and I was kind of like Boromir a little bit, and like there's like some serious flaws in my character before, and through God's refinement and guidance, with my upbringing of heroic and mythological figures and masculine heroes and hard men, I survived the worst experiences one could possibly imagine, mostly, as without other than losing children, let's say, and this will let me be an expert on how to guide people along that path for their benefit, as an example of someone who's more or less been through this process himself and survived it. And then the glory will be like the bling on top of it, sort of like how 50 Cent had to be shot 9 times to get his gangster cred for Eminem to notice him. And then suddenly 50 Cent becomes a millionaire and retires. It's kind of going to be like that almost, I think. Basically. I'm not entirely sure about it, but I'm suspecting it might be the case now that I'm in the interim before any sort of fame or fortune, but also like after I think most of the hardship is over. I'm a little traumatized. So it would mean a lot to me if this were the case. But you know, recognition and glory for having gone through it would actually be a big um, help. Not that I'm asking other people right now, but I think from the woman I love, who I don't know if she even cares anymore, but I think she might. I was told she might before I ever met her. Um, by people on the opposite side of the continent from her, who should have no knowledge of her whatsoever if God didn't exist and prophecy didn't exist. But they were accurate. So basically what I'm going to point to is how to develop character, how to develop or survive outrageously dangerous encounters, how to recover mentally, and leading to God being the designer that leads to these successes despite all evidence going to failure previously. That's how, and it's like, you have to understand, this isn't me just bragging about how I'm so great, despite the fact it looks like it at first. But like, all of this was only doable because of God's guidance and teachings. Like, and it's not like it's not like I believed in God before this started, or for a while during it. But like when I started to believe in God, I was like, oh yeah, there's all these little weird things in my life, like visions and stuff, and like, oh my God, that vision actually relates to this particular event, and like my friends were talking about this exact situation, and like there's like all these little hints in my life from God, and I just ignored them, and then I was like, oh right, God exists, and then suddenly the things started coming back to me, and I was like, oh, that makes sense now. It's like, oh well, God told me ahead of time, and I just ignored it or forgot about it. And it's like, okay, but God's keeping me through this, and He's going to deliver glory in the future. And I'm basically loading this video up as a punch or a preparation for when God punches through the difficulties on my behalf and delivers me, and so on. So it's sort of like God says, get your horses ready, um, but God delivers the victory. Take out your swords, get ready your horses, charge the enemy, but the victory belongs to God, and He decides who wins. And He loves His followers. And then that'll be an advertisement for God, essentially. And yeah. And it also, and then my existential crisis guided toolkit will be like the thing I made when I was unknown. So it's obviously not clout chasing because I was consistently getting like 3 or 4 views a video at most. And I just felt the need to make it on my own, essentially, and then like I can rest on my theory work, and then just move on from there, and then I'll have a body of work that's stable and separate from any new developments when I soften up a bit. And it'll be helpful as a significant and stable body of work for perpetuity. So God will advertise me eventually through my ex-girlfriend, I believe, and then our combined efforts eventually, and then I'll have this body of work ready so that people can look at it and go, oh, that's how he approached it, that's what he was like, that's how he did it, and I can do the same thing, and like get like similar types of success, maybe less success, but like similar types of success to a lesser amount, and like it's like a cross spectrum sort of getting better at life and in life and being better as a person and so on. And it's like how to survive the worst stuff at the same time on top of it. And I'd be making this as I go through it personally, so that it's like in the moment how you approach it, not like an after the fact kind of rose tinted glasses nostalgia sort of thing. It's like in the moment how I'm actually thinking moment to moment for the development recorded, like a diary almost, except of my theories and principles and intellectual stuff and so on. So it's going to give more of an insider view than if you look back on your own life when you're 80, when you were like 20 to 30 years old in war or something like that.